so much misinformation about what you can and cannot do when you go to the polls, and they have been trying to strip our ability to vote all across the country. So this isn't like anything that you haven't heard before, I'm sure. So we're gonna play a game of fact or fiction. And the game of fact or fiction is basically to talk about what we can and cannot do, some of the issues, so we can get the knowledge that we need when we go to the polls next week. So fact or fiction. Let's say a group of y'all are excited, you got up, you're ready to go vote, your friend voted this week, and your friend registered to vote this week, y'all are all getting ready to go together. I encourage that. And your friend who registered this week is like, oh, I'm so excited, I registered to vote last week, I'm gonna go with y'all. Fact or fiction, your friend can go with you to vote if they register this week. You're right, it's fiction. When registration ended when? The 7th, last week, it's done. But what you can do is you can encourage your friend and be like, hey, you can't go this time, but you can go for the rest of your life. All right, so let's say y'all head in the car, you get to the polls, y'all are doing a quick fit check, you have a button that says, voting is power, you got your wristband with your candidate's name on it, you got your hat that says Black Voters Matter, and somebody stops you on the way in. Why did they stop you and tell you you can't go in? What were you wearing in your fit check? This isn't a fact or fiction, it's just a question.
We were wearing
Yes, the wristband, that small little wristband with your candidate's name, they're gonna tell you you can't have that. So just note that you can't have any paraphernalia. So if it's a Make America Great Again hat, if it's a t-shirt that says not going back, you cannot wear that. Now here's the thing, don't let them tell you you can't vote, because you can go take that shirt off, flip it inside out, and put it back on and go vote, okay? Or you can take the hat off, all right?
Well, any questions or comments, anything burning on your heart that you want to share about this moment in time in our country's history, about our opportunity to vote, just anything that's on your heart right now, we'd love to hear from you.
Do you know sort of what has led to that point, like in the country? Would you attribute it to maybe like a lack of voting or lack of like prioritizing voting in certain communities? Or
I mean, as a generation of students, you have probably lived, in all honesty, through the most racialized period in America since the Civil Rights Movement. You're living it now. Does it feel like you're living it now? Yeah. A lot of stuff that was once so visible, you could just see it. You could see the change. You could see white-only signs. You could see this. You don't necessarily see it, but at times you feel it. You know things are not quite as they should be.
There are a bunch of stickers everywhere showing like "Make Texas White Again" that I keep on my laptop just like to remind me that that they're here. And they have a telegram where they gather all their members and they train, and they post all their guns, and they show that they are organizing and preparing for like a race war essentially. And that's here. This was like right outside my apartment last year.
Voting means a lot to me in this season, especially as a first-gen an Indigenous woman and a business owner. It is my first time voting because I am over 18 finally to vote for this election, so it's really, exciting, but it's also daunting as I have a lot of, things to consider when I am thinking about voting. I am also on the spectrum as well, an Indigenous woman on the spectrum, and so I'm looking for a candidate that will align with me and my values personally. But for this season, I think it's really important as a lot of what the Donald Trump and Republican Party have been talking about and discussing for the future is kind of really scary for somebody like me. And so I just want to vote for someone who will have a better future for me and who isn't going to jeopardize other people's human rights.
Yeah, 10% of all hate groups in America are in Texas. Yeah. And when you think about some of the newest hate groups that have been operated, for instance, like the Oath Keepers, alt-right, all of them have Texas roots. Right. Texas has an oversized impact in this nation, believe it or not, like an oversized impact. Whenever textbooks Texas chooses are the textbooks that are chosen from all across the country, from many states. I had a wonderful friend. Unfortunately, she recently died of cancer. Her name was Dr. Ronnie Buren. You may have heard of her a few years ago. She and her son were fighting to change the textbooks in Texas because her son's history book called slavery, instead of calling it the transatlantic slave trade, it called it the triangular trade route. Instead of calling enslaved black people, say slaves, they called them unpaid workers. And they said that Mexican migrants were lazy. And that was in the textbooks of Texas, right? So some group got together, worked together, approved the book, and says this is what we're going to teach in Texas. And just so you know, right now in Texas, state of Texas, it's illegal in public schools to teach children that the KKK was morally wrong. You know that. You can't do that. Matter of fact, some teachers have been up in arms because they have to teach about the benefits of the Jewish Holocaust. Because you can't just teach, quote unquote, one side of history. You got to talk about what was positive about killing 5 million Jews, 6 million, as long as what was wrong about it. I mean, those are times which we live. So again, and a lot of these things are connected to voting because these decisions are made by somebody. So if you agree with that vision, you keep voting and putting these people in power. If you disagree with that vision, if that's your decision, then you have to mobilize and put somebody else in that place. Right now, this is important work. Being in community together, discussing ideas, creating programs that hopefully elevate our knowledge and mobilize us to do the work. This is important work. This is a part of it. So I want to commend you for that. Give yourselves a hand. Coming out on Friday, that's big. This is big coming out on Friday to have this conversation, right? But the big thing is to stay with it, right? What's next? What are you going to do next? What's going to be the next movement? What's going to be the next thing that you build together, right? What's going to be the next issue you address, whether it's local, statewide, whether it's regional or international? How will you collectively? There's a lot of power in this room. Robin's an organizer, so she has organized groups for power, for working together. There's a lot of power in this room, but it's about you casting collective vision and figuring out how you can work together towards that, right? So there's no magic, check these boxes, this is what you do. Most movements begin organically, and they begin because people like yourselves find a cause that you're willing to commit to. And it doesn't mean that you have all the resources, everything figured out. You just know that something's wrong and then something needs to change. And we're going to work together to figure out how to change it.
I would say just look at the candidates, and I know it's really daunting, to look at these options, especially when you're considering multiple factors, but just follow your heart and make sure that people who go against your self-interest don't win, and people who go against your values don't win.